Welcome back. This is the Unexpected Podcast. My name is Justin Malachizi, and our guest today is Alan Stern, who brings us great knowledge about the marketing world, the AI world, and how things are interacting today on a personal basis, branding basis, but also on corporate basis. Alan, welcome.
I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh no, thank you for being here. This is a great opportunity for my audience to understand what's out there with AI. But let's start there. What's going on with AI? How is it affecting the branding world, marketing world? What's the bird's eye view?
Absolutely. And here's one thing, just to set some context, I'm not holding anything back today. I'm going to give a ton of golden nuggets. I just hope that your audience takes it and runs with it. So that way they can get an unfair advantage on their competition right now. So if you really, really think about it, just to set the scene, things in the history of the world have never moved this fast. The scary part is they'll also never move this slow again. And right now, where we're at with AI is all we have for the most part is software. If you take a look at all the big players in the space, Chat GPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, Midjourney, all of these fall under the software category. But in about a year, we're going to have that software that meets hardware.
Hmm.
Tesla, I don't know if you're aware of this, they actually officially announced a couple weeks ago that they're going to cease production on the Model S and the Model X, which are two very, very popular products, so that they can retool their factories to focus in on the hardware. Now, I can't speak on that because it hasn't happened yet, but what I will tell you is AI, specifically the software, is evolving at a just an exponential rate. And to give a metric on this, are you familiar with the term cost to power ratio?
No, go ahead. Tell us what it is.
So there was an ad that showed up on my newsfeed a few months ago while I was doom scrolling. And it was an ad by a company called Mind Valley that was promoting an AI summit. And it talked about this term called a cost to power ratio, which I thought was real techy at first. But all it is how smart and efficient the software is for the dollar. That's it. Now, to land the plane on this, at this trajectory right now, that number is doubling every 3.3 months. So
Wow.
in layman's terms, here's what that means. Assuming Chat GPT just came out right now, like literally today, the clock starts right now, 1 year would go by, and it is about 16 times as smart and as advanced as it was when it first came out. Big deal, right? 16 times, not a really scary number. But check this out. Year two, that's about 250 times. Year three, 4,000 times. Year four, 65,000 times. And year five, which would be the year 2031, it is now a million times as smart and as advanced as it was, assuming it came out today. Which poses a very legitimate question. What is the world going to look like in a few years, man? I don't think anybody knows. I'll tell you
Wow.
what,
That's
though,
scary.
I've already started saying please and thank you to these things because in the event that it has a mood swing and it decides to go full Terminator and I'm hiding underneath the desk, I would like it to see me and say, you know what, that Allen guy was always nice. He never typed in all caps. He never used more than one exclamation point. And at least these are the lies that I tell myself. But what I've found, and maybe you find this as well, is at this moment, there's two very, very passionate schools of thought.
Okay.
On one side, you get people that are saying, it's all doom and gloom. The robots are coming for my job. The world is ending, and universal basic income is inevitable. That's one side of the aisle over here. But the other side, which I'm guessing you fall under, and I certainly fall under, is the entrepreneur that says, wow, what a great time to accomplish more with less. Like, you could be great at something, but there's only one of you and there's only 24 hours in the day. So you are, no matter what, capped by time, unless you can use some tech. And that's what I set out on a mission to do is show the entrepreneur how to use AI to grow their business.
That's amazing. That's a great overview and a great segue. Define today's entrepreneur. What are the limitations that you're trying to help them overcome? And some entrepreneurs may not even realize they have those limitations. So paint us the picture of today's entrepreneur and where they want to go and where you can help them get there.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll actually just start off by saying the three audience that I can serve best and at the deepest level. Number one is an independent sales rep. Now, this would technically be called an intrapreneur because you have a business inside of a business.
Correct.
So a realtor, a car salesman, so automotive is my background, a loan officer, a financial advisor, anybody who has a business inside of a business is an entrepreneur. So they fall under. Today's entrepreneur, what I've really found though, is largely a team of one or maybe even a team of five or less. Because you know what, at the end of the day, the term small business means 500 or less employees by definition. I'm sorry, if you have a business with 500 employees, there's nothing small about what you are doing. But if you are a team of one, here's what I've found are the biggest pain points and the biggest bottlenecks is you have, let's just say three categories. You have your salespeople, you have your marketers, and you have your creatives. The creatives are the ones that create something and they give it to the world. They create the product or the service and they offer that to the marketplace. What I find is oftentimes creative really, really struggle when it comes to sales. Why? Because a lot of times they spend their time in the lab perfecting their craft so that they can give it to the marketplace. Now, what I've found is your salespeople are great when they're in front of somebody, but you can close everything that you touch, but it won't do you any good unless you learn how to market and create opportunities for you to sell. And what I find is most salespeople are weak when it comes to marketing.
Mm.
What I find with most marketers is they are data people. They are really, really smart people that know that know advanced things, which means smart people trying to explain advanced things to the masses goes over everybody's head. And what I find is the opportunity right now using AI is you can overlap all three of those circles. You can
Um,
overlap the sales department, the marketing department, and the creative department. I'm not saying these are perfect tools, but if you are an entrepreneur, there's really never been a better time to run your business lean.
I agree, and I find that creatives sometimes will get lucky and actually sell something, but they'll
Right?
tell
Stumble into it.
why that happened, and they
Yep.
cannot reproduce the concept, right? Uh,
Yep.
and so let's start from that perspective. Where can a creative leverage AI to help them on the marketing on the sales side, or do you think they need to get out of the solo entrepreneur type of world and have at least a team of three, a marketer, a salesperson? And a creative. How does AI come around to help the creative? Because that's where the idea comes from before it goes
Yep.
to the market.
Yeah, I'll actually show you how to overlap both of those departments. And to steal a quote from one of my all-time favorite books, You Are the Brand by Mike Kim, it's simple. Marketing is not about closing a sale.
Mm.
It's about opening the door to a relationship. So what I find, having been a marketer and having been a salesperson, there's this huge disconnect. Your salesperson focuses in on what do I say to close? What do I say to advance the sale and overcome objections? Whereas your marketer focuses in on what do I say to attract?
Mm.
Now, what's interesting with AI is you can use this as your thinking partner. You could use it as your market research firm and your copywriter and your sales trainer as long as you know what to ask it. So, would it be helpful if I just give you an example of exactly how this could work?
Sure.
Just freestyle here. Throw out a random industry, and I'll show you exactly how to create a niche in literally 2 minutes or less. And take that information and feed it back to the machine. So now you could use it as your copywriter and your salesperson. Just give me a random industry.
Uh, I'm going to give you a really boring random industry. Bookkeeping. So not
Bookkeeping.
CPA, just straight up bookkeeping.
I love it. And hey, here's the best part. The more boring, the better. Because if it's boring, most people have no idea how to advertise in that field, which means if you know how to stand out, it's gonna do you a lot of favors. So bookkeeping is great, but let's go a layer deeper just to really niche this in. What kind of bookkeeping? Bookkeeping for small businesses, bookkeeping for nonprofits. Is there a specific niche that you would want me to focus in on, or should I just leave it vague with bookkeeping?
Let's take it with small businesses. I think gives you the widest clientele.
Okay, so before I give the exact prompts to feed the machine, I just want to take a second to explain the why that's attached to the how. In the world of business, we exchange money to solve problems. Like, if you really think about it, we exchange our time and our money to join a chamber of commerce or a business association so that it can solve the problem of lack of visibility.
Mm.
Having that said, if we exchange money to solve problems, what I can do is I can use Chat GPT or Grok or Gemini or Claude or any of these big tools. Is my market research firm if I type this exact prompt in? What are five problems that would cause somebody to consider hiring a bookkeeper that specializes in small businesses. Now, the more specific that you get, the better, because only as these tools are only as good as what we tell it to do, which means if we feed it a lame generic prompt, it will give us a lame generic answer. So if I say, what are 5 problems that would cause somebody to consider hiring a bookkeeper that specializes in small businesses, what will happen is these tools will spend a couple seconds thinking, it'll go to work, and it will indeed give you 5 problems that would likely cause the phone to ring. Now, I want to draw a contrast for a second here on how these tools are different than something like just doing a normal Google search. These search engines like Google will give you suggestions, which means if I go and I type something in, Google would suggest that I go to another website to get the answer.
Correct.
The difference is you use something like ChatGPT, it actually gives you answers within the platform. You can ask it to do things. And in this case, that's why I refer to it as the best employee that's not on payroll. So, step one here is we would say, what are 5 problems that would cause somebody to consider purchasing blank, hiring blank, or doing blank? And that is how we reverse engineer a problem that makes the phone ring. But step two is we would then follow that prompt up by saying, give me an audience that is most likely to experience each of the problems that are listed above. Why is that important? Because now we hone in our messaging. If you and I met, let's say that I was the bookkeeper, and you and I met at a networking event, and you said, Alan, who is a good referral for you? And I just say, anybody who needs a bookkeeper, who do we think of? Nobody, because it's too vague. But if I were to respond to that by saying, I can best help a solopreneur who experiences the problem of mismanaged books because they're doing it themselves. Do you know anybody? The likelihood of somebody coming to mind just got a lot higher.
Correct. That's amazing.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so at this point, what I've really done, man, is I've created 5 different niches. I've created a target market so I can hone in who I'm talking to.
Um, There you go. So now you have a path, right? So that's the
Yep.
research and the marketing. Now, how can that same persona, the bookkeeper, then use that to improve their sales, the closing,
Yep.
because they also don't understand how to talk to folks and bring them closer to the close of the sale, rather than just be on the creative side, telling them how they do their work and they could solve their problems. What's the next step, and how does the AI play into that?
Yeah, so here's what we would do. Now that we have a clear audience, and just for the sake of simplicity, what I'm going to use for this example is a solopreneur business owner who experiences the problem of mismanaged books. So now that I have an audience that I know who I'm talking to, unfortunately, it doesn't mean that they're just going to buy my service right then and there. They're going to hit me with the stall because people generally procrastinate. So I can now go back to the same tool that I was using, ChatGPT, and I could say, what are 5 potential objections that a small business owner who experiences the problem of mismanaged books may have regarding hiring a bookkeeper? And then it'll indeed give me 5 potential objections. In the event that you wanted to ask it for 10, 20, 50, whatever it is, the sky's the limit. I could then follow that prompt up by saying, give me a strategy to overcome each of the listed objections that you gave me. And now I have X amount of objections and X amount of ways to overcome it. Now, if you are watching this and you have a team and you are in a leadership role and you're wondering, hey, what can I possibly have as far as a productive conversation in my team meetings? Role play. If you can flush out, identify, and address these objections in your team meetings, I promise you the sales game for your entire organization is just going to get way better.
Um, let's get back again. Let's go on the enterprise side, because some folks have these teams and they struggle, and sometimes
Yep.
they have their own objection is, do I really want to engage this type of AI from a security perspective, from a job security perspective? What would you recommend for a department head, a team lead? How do they integrate these tools to help them do a better job and improve their team's performance?
Yeah, so I have a core belief that marketing truly works best at the individual level. And the reason why is because before people buy from a brand, they buy from a person who represents that brand. Now, if you really think about it, like you strip the emotion out of it. Every business wants two things. We want to raise revenue and we want to lower expenses. Like it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out. Now, with that being said, the machine will outspeed you, it will outsmart you, it might even outskill you, but it won't outconnect you for that exact reason. So, what I would recommend doing at the very least is learn how to use this thing because if you are using it and your competition is not, it is the equivalent to using, forgive me, doing math freehand versus using the calculator. If you got really good at math, like you went all out and hired a tutor, summer school, and everything in your college years, and I give you this long division problem, you could probably do it by hand eventually. But if you go against the calculator, you will lose every time when it comes to speed. And that's where we're at today in the world of AI. So the simple answer is learn a little bit about what you can do to increase things internally. I also have a core belief that yes, people are going to lose their jobs. However, for every one person, and really hear me, if you are listening to this and you're like, is my job in danger? For every one person that it puts out of work, it's never been a better time for you to put on that entrepreneur hat and say, hey, I'm going to start something of my own. Just the other day, Oracle, from what I understand, sent an email, and I think there were like tens of thousands of people that were laid off. Now, with that being said, I'm willing to bet large sums of money that there's some of those people who were laid off that kind of had one foot out the door anyways. That maybe said, you know what, if I could start a business of my own and make less money, finances aside, I would be way happier. So if that is you, I'm talking to you. Now it's never been easier for you to take that entrepreneur hat, put it on, and figure out how you can keep the lights on.
How do you, because a lot of this is the trend, really. Whether you're a white collar job, a lawyer, a high tech developer, a marketer, or sales, they're out there starting their own essentially efforts. Does your company help folks like that? And some of them want to be speakers and go out on circuits and provide what their knowledge and help their clients. How do you and your company come in and help? Assist from that perspective.
So there's a specific methodology that I teach, and it's called the heat method. And before I go like deep on it and give you examples of how this works, the outcome of doing this is you truly become a market of one. You, by doing this, become somebody who is professionally respected, yet personally liked. And what I find, if you are in business for yourself or if you are in a sales role, if you have one of these without the other, it's going to be an uphill battle. If you are all positioning and you are no connection, now you're in the transactional zone where people may like you. I'm sorry, they may respect you from a business standpoint, but there really isn't there isn't glue that holds that relationship together. And because we're no longer just competing with humans, we're also competing with technology. The second somebody can find a lesser expensive alternative, which is likely AI, your business relationship is in danger. But on the other side, let's say that you are all connection and no positioning, you're in the friend zone. I'm sure we can all admit if we're watching this, we have gone to a networking event and we found somebody who's a nice person that always shows up for everybody else, yet behind closed doors, everybody's saying, "Hey, does anybody actually do business with that person?" So if you are all connection and no positioning, you're in the friend zone. So the heat method, would it be okay if I do a deep dive on this and really unpack the psychology behind this?
Absolutely. I think it's very valuable for our audience to hear this.
Yeah, so the heat method has four parts: humor, education, adding value, and trust. You mix all of those into your marketing strategy, and what happens is people will warm up to you over time. You will literally have the ability to meet somebody in person one time, connect with them on social media, and based off of what you post, they warm up to you over time. Now, what I find is this works best on social media. And the reason why is because people go on social media so that they can be entertained. Don't ever forget that. The reason why people spend large sums of time, about 2.5 hours a day on these platforms, is so that they can be entertained, which means if they are there to be entertained and you, the business owner, are there to sell and promote, massive disconnect, but you can bridge that gap through humor. So, humor really is not about being funny, it's about creating a connection. We live in a world right now where a lot of people are running around busy and stressed out. So here's the science: when people laugh, they tend to remember that which made them laugh. In this case, that's you. But if you really want to get deep on the psychology aspect, what happens when somebody laughs is you temporarily alter what's going on in their head. Literally, there's hormones that are released. Dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone, is released, and they may forget what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Right.
Oxytocin, which is the trust hormone, is also released. We do business with those who we know, like, and trust. And in a time when people are busy and stressed out, cortisol, which is the stress hormone, is decreased. So just by using humor, now what you've done is you've created a bond and you have opened up the door to a relationship. So whatever you say next, people are more receptive to. So before I go a layer deeper, does all of that make sense? And do you have any questions on that?
No, it makes perfect sense. Please continue.
Would it be helpful if I use an example for the bookkeeper?
Sure.
So here's how a bookkeeper can actually take a meme. Yes, you heard me correctly, a meme, and turn it into an advertisement. So if we exchange money so that we can solve problems, would it be fair to say one of the problems that somebody would hire a bookkeeper for is mismanaged books, right?
Correct.
Now, when you think of the term dumpster fire, what do you think of?
A dumpster fire.
Yeah, something bad that happens. So if
Yeah,
I take a
very
picture of
negative.
a burning dumpster fire and I throw a caption over it that says, how it feels when your books are mismanaged, now I just took that and turned it into an advertisement, which means I could post it on social media and say, if this resonates with you, we should chat. And I've just turned that into an advertisement. And guess what? Because I've blended humor and advertising, somebody might share it. And if they share it, they just passed along my business card, but they did it in a cool way. So that's the humor. The challenge is sometimes people get lost in humor. And if you just do that, your audience will ask themselves, are you a comedian or can you actually help me? So what we have to do is blend education into it so that people actually not only take us seriously, they put us in the resource category.
Mm.
Now, I'm going to steal a quote from one of my favorite books called The Ultimate Sales Machine, and that is when you sell, you break rapport, but when you educate, you build it. The science behind that is when you use education in your marketing, it becomes their idea to reach out and engage with you. So, give you an example here. And as you may know, I have a background in the automotive industry. So, let's say that I met somebody for the first time at a networking event, and
Okay.
we both left the event at the exact same time. And they walked out to a car that was 25 years old, rusted out, and the front bumper was hanging off. If I still sold cars and I approached that person and I said, hey, I couldn't help but notice that you might need a new car. Here's my business card. Why don't you come in next Tuesday and take a look at some options? Scale of 1 to 10. How do you think that is going to land?
Not well. That
Exactly. The whole conversation just got weird
you're
because
just
I
passing
insulted them.
judgment and assumptions. That's right.
Right, exactly. But let's say that I met that person, we connected on social media, and I started putting out content that said, in the event that you have a car that's over 15 years old, here are three signs that it's actually costing you more money than
Mm.
keeping it than it is replacing it. Step one, if you've spent over $2,000 this year in car repairs, this applies to you. Step two, divide that number by 12. Step three, if your car payment is above this number, it is costing you more money keeping it than it is replacing it.
Mm.
If you saw that, you might resonate with it and actually reach out to me and say, you know what? That post landed. Let's chat. So when you combine humor and education together, your audience says, this person's cool. I would enjoy spending time with them. But all jokes aside, they know their stuff, and here is how they can help me.
No, I like that. You're giving them the data for them to build their own business case to reach out to you, rather than coercing them into it. Um,
Yep.
excellent. Now, you also do some persona marketing type of advice on the speaker circuit. Tell us more about it, specifically for the solopreneur let's say that bookkeeper, to not just focus on the marketing and what we just talked about, but how to increase her visibility, to be a thought leader within that niche, to also amplify their funnel for potential clients.
Yeah, definitely. So I get hired quite often to be a speaker and put on workshops teaching marketing at the individual level. So, what does that look like? There's a six-part AI branding masterclass series where I help remove somebody from the salesperson category and position them into the business thought leader category. What does that entail? I teach how to set up a free newsletter on LinkedIn. Why is that relevant? Because everybody posts, but only thought leaders publish. By you having a publication, you are now viewed completely different as your competition because you have the ability, when somebody asks you a question, to say, you know what, Justin, that's a great question. By the way, I wrote an article on that, and here's where you can find it. Completely different framing. So I teach that, but I also teach how to take the long form and turn it into videos that have sound bites on them that people remember. When you do this, you are in a completely different world because when you introduce some sort of educational value on said topic to somebody, salespeople may have, you may be able to solve a problem, but it's like the thought leaders who have actually studied them. So now people start seeking you for advice to help them better their situation, and you get viewed completely different in the marketplace. So this AI branding masterclass series, I mean, there's a couple different formats. Somebody can hire me to come in and train their staff internally. Somebody can work with me one-on-one in a coaching manner. I also have a course that somebody can pick up, whatever medium works best because we're all at different chapters of our business.
That's right. Thank you for that. One of the main groups that I try to focus on when I do these conversations in person or over a podcast is the nonprofit sector.
Yep.
It's often overlooked, but the executive directors and the workers within it struggle as well because it's a different, I wouldn't say product, but it's a different mission. You're trying to connect emotionally to get to a donation or sponsorship of a banquet or whatnot. How would nonprofit leaders or nonprofit people who work in that industry take the lessons you just shared today and try to implement from their perspective? What would they need to change, or what platform do you think they can build from this?
Yeah, so look at it at the very simple, the very just over distilled level is the way that people make decisions is based off of emotion first, and then they justify it with logic. When we're talking about nonprofits, I actually would not recommend using humor unless it's something that's like really
Yeah,
niche and you can get away with it. I
yeah,
would go the route of education. Because what you're doing there is you're connecting with the cause versus the actual person. Now, the person represents the nonprofit that is eliminating or solving the problem that is in the world. But what I really would do is I would start with the long format and start with a newsletter. I would also start with some really, really detailed, emotionally captivating videos on what said organization is doing to solve said problem in the world. And at that point, I would actually recommend getting a media team involved because what you should do is you should have a high quality video that tells a story because facts tell, stories sell, and that is where you actually hire a professional company. Now, if you need something that is do it yourself, I'm the guy that can show you how to do that. But when it comes to the art of visual storytelling and production grade videos, that's beyond generally the scope of what I teach. That's where you involve a media company to really tell the story. And at that point, you start running things like that as a paid advertisement to reach more people.
outstanding. Um, Final question on the AI side. Um, you mentioned the different platforms here, ChatGPT, Claude. What are the other ones? Capgemini, I think, is one of them, and Copilot. What are
Oh,
what I've
sorry about
been
that.
no problem. What I've been what I've found very interesting because I come from the markets area, the banking industry, and so I like to triangulate things. I like to do testing, A/B testing, back testing, etc. And so I've taken these prompts, but I'll ask, let's say, ChatGPT, and it'll give me an answer, and then I'll go to Claude and ask it to critique that answer, and it'll give me something else. And then I'll go to, I don't know, DeepSeek is another one out there. And what I found is when you have them critique each other, they exponentially improve upon it themselves. And by the time you do a third, fourth order, and you go back to ChatGPT and say, "How about this part?" It tends to agree or supplement. And have you ever tried that? What do you think of that concept? It's worked for me, but I thought I'd ask it for you and the audience. to not just always limit yourself in one window. Try to use multiple, essentially build a team of multiple brains and see if you can get a much improved strength and answer.
I think it's a great strategy. It's one of these things where here's my approach is I would rather be the guy that knows a lot about a little. That way you're niched, you're in and you could serve one audience at a very deep level and you have a deep understanding of the platform. Now, me personally, the ones that I'm using most are ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. However, what is interesting to echo what you just said is if you get one thing from somebody over here, one platform, and another from over here, and you copy and paste and said, hey, this is what this said, it's going to wordsmith it great, and you're going to receive different bits of information than you would have if you just did one. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. For me, the one that I'm using at the deepest level is chat. When in doubt, ask it what you should ask it so that you can get the best response. Like literally just say, here's what I'm looking to do. What should I ask you so that you can give me the best answer for said, problem. That's worked out really well for me. But if it's working for you, I would definitely say do it.
Outstanding. Any last advice or perspective on these topics for audience that you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, I'd close it out with this. Just at a very simple level, remember, it's not about you going against the machine. It's about you harnessing the power of the machine so that you can do more with less. It's a great time to be alive, folks. You now have the ability to start something of your own without having to worry about hiring a market research company or a team of salespeople. You can automate a lot of this stuff. Is there some tech that's involved? Yes. Is there a learning curve? Yes. But if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. If you needed to narrow down a target market years ago, pre AI, you would likely invest in a market research company. Nothing wrong with that. But if you think about your expense list for something like that, you would have to rent a facility, hire a staff, donate your product, and compensate the attendees just to get information that you can largely get for free right now using AI. So I look at this and I say, what a time to be alive. As far as the sales team, you used to have to hire a sales trainer to role play and dialogue and do all of these things and help you with email templates. Now you can get the majority of this from AI. If you're writing a newsletter or you're designing some sort of creative, nothing wrong with hiring a graphic designer, but there was a time deficits. If you used to not really know what you wanted, you would have to go back and forth with somebody for several days. Now you can ask these tools for AI rendering. So I truly hope that you got a lot of value out of this if you're listening to this and that you just take action on one thing that we went over.
Outstanding. What is the best way for someone to reach you if they have questions or want to follow up with you directly? How do they find you?
Just go to connectwithalanstern.com. Connect with ALANSTERN.com. All the social media handles are on there. My ebook, a recording of one of my presentations. Love the opportunity to chat with you if you feel it might be a good fit working one-on-one together.
Well, Alan, thank you very much. I think what you've helped us understand is the AI architecture or the prompt architecture someone should use as they work with these tools. And from a branding perspective, it's going to help them, I think. So thank you for your time. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend coming up. And cheers. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, my friend. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Take care.
You too.